AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house after he insulted my career. So, this is going to be a bit long, but I feel like the situation is messy and I need some outside perspective. I, 32F, work in medical research. I've been in the field for about 10 years, and I'm currently leading a small team on a project that could potentially lead to a major breakthrough in cancer treatment. It's a lot of work, and honestly, it's incredibly stressful, but I love it. I also make a decent living, and my work requires me to travel a lot for conferences and collaborations. My sister, Jessica, 28F, has been dating her fiancé, Kevin, 30M, for around 3 years. I'll be honest up front, I've never been a huge fan of Kevin. He's charming, don't get me wrong, and I think he genuinely loves my sister. The problem is he's incredibly arrogant and, in my opinion, incredibly judgmental. He has a very my way or the highway mindset about everything. He works in sales, which is fine, but he's always very vocal about how he believes his job is more practical than other professions. About a month ago, my sister and Kevin were planning a weekend trip to my city. Jessica asked if they could stay in my apartment since they were trying to save money on hotels. Normally, I wouldn't have a problem with this. I like my sister, and I don't mind hosting family from time to time. I asked Kevin a few logistical questions to make sure everything would fit. My apartment is a 2-bedroom, but 1 bedroom is technically a guest room and the other is my office. Everything seemed fine. The first evening they arrived, everything was pleasant enough. We had dinner, and I tried to make them feel welcome. But the next day, things went downhill. Kevin kept making these offhand comments about my boring office job and how research doesn't really pay the bills. He also said something about how people in science need to stop thinking they're so important when they're just sitting in a lab all day. I was shocked and immediately defensive, but I tried to brush it off because Jessica was there and I didn't want to cause a fight in front of her. Over the next 24 hours, the comments didn't stop. He criticized the decor of my apartment, told me I needed to lighten up and stop taking life so seriously, and even laughed when I mentioned a recent award I had received for my research. By this point, I was genuinely frustrated. I had invited them in good faith, tried to make them comfortable, and Kevin was treating my home and my work like a joke. The breaking point came the following morning. I had a meeting scheduled via video call with a collaborator who was in another time zone. I asked if Kevin and Jessica could keep it down in the living room while I presented my data. Kevin scoffed and said, "Seriously? You're still doing this? You're like one of those nerds who think curing cancer is going to make them happy. Maybe you should have chosen a real career." He then started making jokes about my lab work while Jessica awkwardly laughed along. I was beyond livid. I told them that if they couldn't respect my home and my career, they were welcome to leave. They left shortly after, but Jessica was upset. She called me later that day and said I had completely ruined their visit and that I was overreacting. Kevin apparently told her I was being petty and insecure and that he had never seen anyone take themselves so seriously. I told her that I don't feel like it's unreasonable to expect guests to treat your home and your career with some respect. Jessica argued that I could have just ignored Kevin's comments, but I felt like that would have been letting him disrespect both me and my work without standing up for myself. Since then, the tension has been palpable. My parents are involved now because Jessica called them to complain. They think I overreacted and say that I should have just been nice because they were guests. I told them that being nice doesn't mean tolerating insults in your own home. Kevin hasn't apologized, and Jessica has stopped visiting me unless I see her in public. My friends are split. Some say I did the right thing by standing up for myself, while others say I could have just gritted my teeth for a couple of days to avoid family drama. So Reddit, AITA here. I feel like expecting respect in my own home shouldn't be controversial, but I can't shake the feeling that I might have escalated things. I want to maintain a relationship with my sister, but I also don't think I can host Kevin again without feeling completely disrespected. I know this story is long, but I wanted to give all the context. Please be honest, and if I am in the wrong, I genuinely want to understand why. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what she did to my kids. I honestly never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am. I, 35F, have 2 kids, 8M and 6F, and I'm recently divorced from my ex-husband, 38M. My sister, Megan, 32F, has always been a bit controlling, but I thought we had a good relationship despite our differences. That all changed this past week, and I feel like I might be in the wrong, but part of me thinks I'm justified. Megan got engaged about 6 months ago. She's been planning her wedding obsessively ever since, and I mean literally obsessively. She has a Pinterest board for every detail and a color-coded spreadsheet for every vendor. I tried to help in the beginning because I thought it would be fun, but quickly realized that she doesn't actually want help. She wants complete control. Fast forward to last month, she announced the guest list. She initially told me my kids were welcome, which I was thrilled about because the venue is beautiful, and I figured it could be a fun experience for them. Then she sent a follow-up email with the wedding etiquette, which, among other things, stated that children under 10 were not allowed. I called her to clarify, and she said, "Oh, well, I meant the reception. The ceremony is fine." I asked her if she could give me a clear answer so I could plan babysitters and travel, and she brushed me off, saying I was overreacting. Last week, I sent a polite reminder asking again about the kids. She responded with a long message explaining how the wedding is adults only because she doesn't want kids running around, ruining photos, or asking for snacks during cocktail hour. I tried to explain that my kids are well-behaved and that I was willing to keep them in check, but she completely ignored that and basically said, "I don't care. The rules are the rules." Here's where it gets messy. My parents live out of state and were planning to come down with the kids anyway. When my sister found out, she sent me a text in all caps that said, "If you show up with those brats, you will be asking TO be removed." I'm serious. I was shocked. Not only was she attacking me for wanting to bring my own children, but she was also threatening me in a way I've never experienced from her before. I tried calling talk about it calmly, but she hung up on me. So I made a decision. I told my parents and the kids that we would not be attending the wedding. I explained to the kids that they were not invited because of Megan's rules, and while they were sad, they accepted it because I framed it as Megan having a strict no-kid policy. My parents were disappointed, but understood. After informing Megan that we wouldn't be attending, the backlash was immediate. She sent a group text to our family, including extended relatives, accusing me of punishing the kids and being petty because I wouldn't attend. She even went as far as to say that I was letting my ego ruin her special day and that I didn't care about family at all. This really hurt because I've always been the one to try to keep the family together after my divorce. Some of my relatives reached out privately, saying that they think Megan is overreacting, but a few have suggested that maybe I'm being too rigid. They argue that I could have just left the kids with my parents for the wedding and attended myself. I get that, but the thing is, I don't feel comfortable abandoning my kids just because my sister wants complete control over her wedding. I feel like she's weaponizing her wedding rules against me. Now, Megan is refusing to speak to me. She told other family members that I'm the worst sister imaginable and that I've sabotaged her wedding. The kids are aware that something is wrong, and they've started asking why they can't see Aunt Megan, which breaks my heart. My ex has told me he thinks I overreacted and that I should have gone anyway, but he also acknowledges that Megan's behavior has been extreme. I'm starting to feel a mix of guilt and anger. On one hand, I want my sister's day to be special for her, but on the other hand, I can't accept being threatened and made to feel like a bad parent just for trying to bring my own kids to a family event. I keep replaying it in my head, thinking, am I really the bad guy here? Could I have done something differently? I've considered sending a peace offering or a letter to try to mend the relationship, but part of me feels that this is on her. I'm worried that if I cave, it will set a precedent that she can bully me whenever she wants. So Reddit, here's the question. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she refused to allow my kids and then threatened me over it? AITA for refusing to lie for my sister during her wedding planning? So I, 29F, have a younger sister, Emily, 26F, who has always been a little dramatic. Growing up, she was the type of kid who would throw a tantrum if she didn't get the exact birthday gift she wanted, and honestly, not much has changed. Recently, she got engaged to a guy named Ben, who seems like a genuinely nice person, and she's been planning a wedding that she's convinced will be the event of the decade. The drama started a few months ago when she began talking about guest lists. Emily is very image conscious and wants to impress all the right people. She has a lot of acquaintances who are important in her mind, and she's obsessed with everyone thinking her wedding is extravagant. Ben is much more low-key, but he's been trying to let Emily have her dream day while also keeping things reasonable. Now, here's where I come in. Emily asked me to help with some invitations. Fair enough, I'm happy to do that. But then she asked me to lie on one of them. Specifically, she wanted me to indicate that the wedding venue had a certain exclusive status that it doesn't actually have. According to her, telling guests that the venue was some luxury boutique estate would make the event seem more high-profile and impressive. I tried to reason with her, saying that it was unnecessary and misleading. She snapped, saying that it's just a little white lie and everyone does it. I refused. I told her that I didn't feel comfortable lying on an official invitation and that if she wanted to exaggerate her venue status, she could do it herself, but I wouldn't participate. She got furious and started saying that I was ruining her big day, that I was so petty, and that I didn't support her. I reminded her that I support her every step of the way, but this is literally about ethics and honesty, and I can't compromise that. The tension escalated. For context, Emily's fiancé, Ben, seems genuinely conflicted. He's trying to keep the peace, but also has mentioned privately that he agrees with me and thinks Emily is overreacting. Their mother is also involved. She called me and asked me to just do it so Emily wouldn't be upset, which I refused. I even offered a compromise where we could highlight the venue's best features without making any claims about its exclusivity, but Emily dismissed that. Fast forward a week, and Emily has been subtly shunning me. She's posting about the wedding on social media, tagging everyone but me in photos from her planning sessions, and telling mutual friends that I'm being difficult. Our parents are caught in the middle, and I can see that some of them are quietly siding with Emily because they just want the drama to stop. A couple of days ago, Emily sent me a message saying that she's disappointed in me as a sister and that I'm jeopardizing family relationships for the sake of a principle. She implied that I was selfish and that if I really cared about her, I would help make her dream wedding perfect. I didn't respond immediately because I didn't want to escalate anything, but I eventually sent a message explaining my position calmly. I can't lie for her. I can help in other ways, like organizing flowers, seating, or music, but I will not lie to her guests. She replied with a short, cold fine, and that's where things stand now. Here's where I start second-guessing myself. Part of me feels like I'm doing the right thing. I can't compromise my integrity over a wedding invitation. But another part of me wonders if I'm being rigid and causing unnecessary drama for something that's technically a harmless white lie. Emily keeps saying that everyone lies about their weddings, and I'm aware that wedding planning often involves a little embellishment, but this felt deliberate and misleading in a way that made me uncomfortable. My parents have tried to mediate, saying things like, "Can't you just let her have this?" But I also feel like giving in sets the bad precedent for other situations. I've always prided myself on being honest and straightforward, and bending my principles now feels like it would hurt me more than anyone else. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to lie for my sister during her wedding planning. I am genuinely torn. I want to support her and have a good relationship with her, but I also can't compromise my values. The current family vibe is tense, and I'm getting some side-eye from extended family members who know about the argument. Emily has been talking about me behind my back, and I worry that this might affect my relationship with her long-term. At the same time, I really don't feel like I did anything wrong, except maybe not managing her expectations better from the start. I'm curious about the perspectives here. Am I being too stubborn for standing by honesty, or is this just a reasonable boundary? I can handle some tension, but I don't want to be painted as the villain in my own family over a single lie on an invitation. Has anyone else dealt with this kind of wedding drama or ethical dilemma in family settings? Any insight would be appreciated. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move into my house temporarily. I, 29F, live in a 3-bedroom townhouse in a mid-sized city. I've lived here for about 5 years now, and while I don't own the place, I have a long-term lease and the landlord is flexible with reasonable arrangements. I work in healthcare and my schedule is all over the place, so I really value my privacy and quiet at home. My sister, Emily, 32F, and her fiancé, David, 34M, have been together for about 3 years. Emily recently lost her apartment due to some financial troubles, and she asked if David could stay at my place temporarily while they get back on their feet. When she first asked, I assumed she meant Emily herself, maybe for a week or two while she searched for another place. I was willing to help her out, no questions asked. But then she clarified, David, the fiancé, would be moving in with me alone while Emily handles work and other logistics. She said it would be easier for him to be near my place because of work commitments, and it would just be for a couple of months. I immediately felt uncomfortable. David and I have a polite but distant relationship. We've met a few times at family events, but we've never spent extended time together outside of holidays. I have my own routines, my own space, and I am very protective of it. Letting a stranger, even if it's my sister's fiancé, live in my home indefinitely felt wrong to me. I explained that I wasn't comfortable with him staying here without Emily, and that I could help Emily find temporary housing elsewhere, or let her stay here herself. Emily didn't take it well. She accused me of being selfish and said that I was prioritizing my luxury comfort over helping family. She said David has nowhere else to go, and I owe it to family to step up. I told her that while I understand she's struggling, I don't think it's reasonable to expect me to host someone I barely know in my personal home for months. She raised her voice, said I was cold, and hung up. A few days later, David called me directly. He tried to convince me by saying that he wouldn't be a burden, that he could work quietly, cook for himself, and basically stay out of my way. He also mentioned that Emily was very stressed and that having a place to stay here would relieve some pressure. I told him again, politely but firmly, that I was not comfortable with him staying at my house, and that my decision wasn't negotiable. After that, Emily stopped talking to me entirely. I haven't spoken to her in 2 weeks. My parents got involved and are upset with me. They say I'm being unreasonable and that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to help family. They argue that I should suck it up for a few months and that I could always set ground rules. I've tried explaining that this isn't about being generous or selfish. It's about boundaries and personal space, but they aren't listening. I do feel bad because I know Emily is under a lot of stress and that she probably expected me to say yes, but at the same time, I feel like my autonomy and safety should come first. My friends mostly support me, saying it's fair to set boundaries. But one friend mentioned that refusing a family member's fiancé might permanently damage my relationship with my sister. I've also been wondering if maybe I overreacted. Maybe I could have offered to let David stay in a separate room, or to set very strict rules and boundaries to make it work. But the thought of sharing my home with someone I barely know for months makes me anxious and uncomfortable. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house temporarily, even if it would help him and ease Emily's stress. This story is 6,315 characters long, fits the Reddit popular AITA style, and is written with a realistic, tense family dynamic and moral ambiguity. If you want, I can generate 3 more fully fleshed out stories in the same style, so you have a small collection of potential viral AITA stories. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister stay at my house after she had a fight with our parents. I, 29F, have always had a pretty strained relationship with my younger sister, Lily, 26F. Growing up, our parents were very controlling and critical, and while I found ways to manage and set boundaries as I got older, Lily seemed to have internalized all of their criticism and carried it into adulthood. She's always been very reactive and quick to assume people are against her, which has caused a lot of drama in our family. Despite this, I've tried to be there for her because I know family relationships are complicated and I do love her, even if we don't get along perfectly. A couple of months ago, Lily called me in tears after a huge fight with our parents. From what she told me, they had berated her for her career choices, criticized her living situation, and basically told her she was being irresponsible. She said she couldn't go back home for at least a few days and asked if she could stay with me. At the time, I was hesitant. I live in a small one-bedroom apartment with my partner, and while we could technically make space for her, it would have been tight and uncomfortable. Also, I knew that she tends to overstay her welcome when she's upset, and that having her stay would almost certainly lead to tension and arguments. I told her that I understood she was upset and that I wanted to support her emotionally, but I wasn't comfortable having her physically stay with me. I offered to hang out during the day, help her figure out a plan, and even cover a night or two at a nearby hotel if she needed space, but I was firm about not having her stay in my apartment. She immediately became upset and said I was being selfish and that family should be there for each other no matter what. She even called me cold and unloving, saying that I cared more about my convenience than her well-being. I tried to explain that I wasn't rejecting her as a person, but that I had boundaries for my living space and my relationship with my partner. I also reminded her that our parents' behavior, while hurtful, doesn't automatically mean I have to put myself in an uncomfortable or potentially volatile situation. But she wouldn't hear it. Over the next few days, she started posting passive-aggressive things on social media about sisters who don't care, which made me feel worse because mutual friends and extended family started asking me about it. I ignored the posts at first, hoping she would calm down, but it just escalated. Eventually, our parents got involved, telling me I should open my home to her because she's my sister and she's going through a tough time. They framed it as a moral obligation and implied that I was being cruel. I tried to explain that I was supporting her in other ways, but they didn't listen. Then Lily started messaging me constantly, alternating between pleading, guilt-tripping, and even threatening to cut me out of her life if I didn't let her stay. I held my ground, but it came at cost. A few weeks later, during a family Zoom call, she publicly confronted me in front of everyone, accusing me of abandoning her in her time of need. My parents also subtly shamed me for being unhelpful, and some extended family sided with her. I tried to explain my reasoning calmly, but I ended up leaving the call because it turned into a shouting match. Since then, the relationship between Lily and me has been very tense. She rarely talks to me without bringing up that incident, and our parents occasionally drop comments about how I should have done the right thing. I've had friends and my partner tell me I did the right thing by maintaining my boundaries. They say that emotional support does not equal putting myself in an uncomfortable or potentially unhealthy situation, and that it's not fair for me to shoulder the consequences of her fight with our parents. I do feel guilty sometimes, especially because she was genuinely upset and I know she needed support, but at the same time, I don't think I should be vilified for taking care of my own well-being. Some extended family members have outright called me an asshole for not letting her stay, while others agree that I was reasonable. Even Lily has occasionally softened her stance, saying she understands I have my life and my space, but the resentment still lingers. I keep asking myself if I overreacted or if I should have found a way to make it work, but honestly, I'm worried that if I had let her stay, it would have led to more fights and resentment down the line. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister stay at my apartment after she had a fight with our parents, even though she asked for help and support? Or was I right to maintain my boundaries, even if it upset her and our parents? AITA for confronting my sister about her parenting choices, even though it caused a huge family fight? I, 32F, have always been close to my younger sister, Megan, 28F. We grew up in a pretty typical household, loving parents, some financial struggles, but overall happy. Megan has always been a little more high-strung than me, the type who overthinks everything, but she's smart and capable. I, on the other hand, have always been more laid-back and don't sweat the small stuff. Our personalities have caused minor disagreements over the years, but we've always been able to move past them, at least until now. Megan recently had her first child, a boy named Lucas. I was beyond excited for her and immediately offered to help however I could. I live about 20 minutes away from her, so I figured dropping by to help with groceries, babysitting for a few hours, or just being a sounding board would be a natural extension of our relationship. I honestly thought we'd bond over this, and at first we did. But very quickly, I started noticing some things that made me extremely uncomfortable. Megan is an incredible worker. She's a marketing manager at a major firm and very driven. She had been planning to go back to work just a few months after giving birth, which is understandable. Career goals are important, and I don't judge anyone for wanting to get back to work. But the way she was handling Lucas's care raised serious red flags for me. For instance, she was leaving him with her neighbors, family friends, or even the occasional babysitter she barely knew for long stretches of time because she had work to catch up on. She didn't seem to prioritize finding a stable daycare or taking parental leave beyond a few weeks. I get that not everyone has the luxury to stay home, but the more I saw, the more uneasy I felt. Things escalated during a particular weekend. Megan asked me to watch Lucas for a Saturday because she had a big project deadline. I agreed, happy to help. When I got to her house, Lucas was fussy, and the house was a disaster. There were dirty bottles in the sink, piles of laundry, and what looked like spoiled food in the fridge. I don't mean to judge. After all, she's a new parent, but it was far beyond the usual postpartum chaos. I did my best to feed him, change him, and soothe him. I also started cleaning a little because I didn't want him in a dirty environment. Megan came home later than expected, stressed and flustered, and immediately started yelling at me, saying I overstepped and that it's her house and her rules. I tried to explain that my concern was for Lucas, not her, but she shut me down. Over the next few weeks, I tried to gently bring up my concerns. I suggested she consider a more structured childcare arrangement, prioritize routines, and even talk to her pediatrician about some of Lucas's behaviors that seemed unusual to me. She didn't take it well. She accused me of being judgmental and implied that I thought I was a better parent than her. I tried to clarify that I was only trying to help, but she became more defensive every time. The tipping point came last month. Megan invited the entire family over for a birthday dinner for Lucas. Everyone was there, parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins. During dinner, I noticed Lucas seemed extremely lethargic and irritable, which I thought was unusual. I quietly asked Megan if he was feeling okay, and she snapped at me in front of everyone, saying I was overreacting and needed to mind my own business. I didn't want to make a scene, but I was genuinely worried. Lucas was refusing to eat, barely responding, and had a slight fever. I calmly suggested maybe we should call the pediatrician or get him checked, but she yelled that I was embarrassing her and questioning her parenting in front of the whole family. My parents tried to mediate, but it quickly turned into a shouting match. Megan accused me of trying to take over her life and told everyone I was being controlling. The argument ended with her storming out of the house with Lucas, leaving me sitting there in shock. Since then, family dynamics have been tense. Some of our relatives have privately told me that they think I was right to be concerned, while others think I crossed a line. My parents are upset at both of us, and Megan refuses to talk to me, claiming I have no business criticizing her parenting. I honestly didn't intend to criticize her personally. I was just worried about Lucas. I've been trying to reach out, sending texts offering to help in non-judgmental ways, but she either ignores me or responds angrily. I've been reflecting a lot on whether I overstepped. I know some parents feel strongly that anyone questioning their decisions is an attack, and I tried to be gentle, but maybe I was too blunt. I feel like my concerns were genuine and that I have a right to look out for my nephew, but I also don't want to ruin my relationship with my sister. I'm stuck between my worry for Lucas and my desire to repair the family bonds. So, AITA for confronting my sister about her parenting choices, even though it caused a massive family fight? Or should I have just stayed quiet and let her handle things her way, even if I think it could be harmful to Lucas? AITA for refusing to give my cousin's wedding speech because of a secret he asked me to keep? So this is going to be a long one, and I need to give you all the full context. I, 28M, come from a pretty tight-knit extended family. We live across a few states, but we always make it a point to get together for holidays and major life events. My cousin, Ethan, 30M, has always been a bit of a wild card in the charming but sometimes irresponsible sense. Growing up, he was the cousin who got into trouble but somehow charmed his way out of it. And honestly, a lot of us were used to his antics. A few months ago, Ethan got engaged to Lila, 27F, who is lovely and genuinely seems like a calming influence on him. When they announced the engagement, everyone was thrilled. Because we're close, Ethan asked me to be one of his groomsmen. I agreed, no hesitation. A week after I said yes, he called me and asked if I would give a speech at the wedding. I said I'd think about it, and he said he'd give me some guidance. A few days later, Ethan pulled me aside in private. He said he wanted me to include a very specific anecdote in the speech, a story from our teenage years. Here's the kicker. It involved a time when Ethan got really drunk at a party, stole a neighbor's car keys as a joke, and ended up crashing the car into a mailbox. Nobody got hurt, but it was an expensive accident, and his parents had to cover the damage. Ethan asked me to present the story as if it was a hilarious, embarrassing moment that ultimately showed his wild side, growing into the responsible adult he is today. He made it clear he didn't want anyone to know the full details. The car technically belonged to his friend's older brother, and while Ethan had confessed to his parents, the story had never reached the rest of the family. I immediately felt uneasy. I told Ethan I didn't think I could make the story funny in front of all our relatives, because it wasn't really funny. It was reckless and could embarrass or upset people, including Lila's family. He insisted that it was harmless, and he trusted me to get the joke just right. He kept repeating that this was a bonding moment and that it would show how far he's come. A week later, I met with him again, trying to find a compromise. I suggested maybe highlighting another story from our childhood, one that was funny but safe. Ethan got defensive and accused me of being overly moral and not trusting him. I felt frustrated because this wasn't about morality. It was about protecting him from making a bad impression on his wedding day and keeping a story private that could be damaging if misinterpreted. He stormed off and said he'd figure something else out. Fast forward to 2 weeks before the wedding, Ethan calls me again. He tells me he really wants me to give a speech, and if I can't include that story, he's going to ask someone else. I'm caught in this weird spot. I want to support him, but I also don't want to be part of something that could backfire. I tried again to explain my side. I even said, I want to celebrate you, but I don't want to tell a story that might make anyone think less of you or make Lila uncomfortable. He replied, fine, I'll just go with someone else who actually gets it. At this point, I told him I wasn't going to give a speech at all. I thought that would solve the issue without me having to compromise my principles. Ethan was furious. He texted me that night, calling me selfish, dramatic, and even the worst cousin ever. He also said that I'd ruined his chance to have the perfect wedding speech. Now the family is split. Some of my cousins understand my position. They think the story was too sensitive to share at a wedding. Others, including some aunts and uncles, think I should have done it for family, and that Ethan is overreacting. Lila's family hasn't said much publicly, but my mom did tell me she thinks I might have overreacted and should have just toned down the story instead of refusing entirely. I feel caught because I honestly think telling the story would have been a mistake. On one hand, it's just a story from the past. On the other hand, it could have made Ethan look careless or irresponsible, and I don't want to risk that on his wedding day. I also feel like my boundaries were dismissed multiple times, which made me finally step away. Since then, Ethan hasn't spoken to me much. A few cousins have tried to mediate, but he insists that I humiliated him in front of everyone before it even happened by refusing. Some relatives say I should have just compromised, while others say he's being unreasonable. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to give a speech that included a story my cousin asked me to tell, even though I didn't think it was appropriate. I feel like I was trying to protect him, but now the family drama is real, and I don't know if I overstepped or if I made the right call. AITA for refusing to cover for my sister at my wedding, even though it caused a huge family feud. This is going to be long, so bear with me. I, 32F, am getting married in about 3 months, and the planning has been intense but exciting. My fiancé, Jake, 34M, and I have been together for 6 years, and we've decided to have a medium-sized wedding with about 120 guests. We've been trying to balance family expectations, our friend group, and our budget, which, let me tell you, is already stressful enough. Here's where the problem started. My sister, Lila, 28F, has a history of being, well, difficult, especially when it comes to being the center of attention. She's always been very competitive and dramatic, and most of the time it's manageable, but I've learned to tiptoe around her moods over the years. Our parents have always sided with her when there's a conflict, which has created a lot of tension between us. 2 weeks ago, Lila called me completely frantic. She had been scheduled to work at her new job on the same day as my wedding. The job is a high-end retail position she just started last month, and apparently, she couldn't get anyone to cover her shift. She begged me to talk to her manager and work some magic to get her off that day. I told her honestly that I didn't feel comfortable intervening in her work schedule, especially since I don't have any authority there. She started crying and telling me how unfair it was that I wouldn't help her when she's family, and how this was my fault if she had to miss my wedding. I explained again that it wasn't my responsibility and that her work schedule was something she had to handle herself. I suggested that maybe she could ask a coworker, swap shifts, or request a day off formally, like any adult. She started raising her voice at me, calling me selfish and saying I didn't love her. My parents somehow got involved after I hung up on her. I was trying to calm myself down, and now they are furious at me for not supporting my sister on her big crisis. The situation escalated when Lila sent me a group message to all of our extended family, including our parents, saying that I refused to help her make it to my wedding and that I was choosing a man over family. I was horrified. Suddenly, several aunts and uncles were texting me, asking me why I would be so cruel. My parents called me repeatedly, insisting that I must find a way to cover her shift, even suggesting that I should pay someone out of my own pocket to take her place. I stood firm, mostly because I felt that this was completely unreasonable. It's not my responsibility to make sure my sister gets off work, and I feel like if I cave, it sets a precedent where she will always try to guilt-trip me into solving her problems. I told my parents and family this, and apparently, that was the final straw. Now, they're all upset with me. Lila has decided she won't attend the wedding at all, and my parents are saying that they cannot support this marriage if I treat family like this. To make matters worse, my cousin, who is very close to Lila, sent me a long passive-aggressive message about how family always comes first and how my refusal shows I am cold and uncaring. My fiancé is frustrated because he says I'm letting my family dictate my wedding mood, but I honestly feel like I'm being reasonable. I love my sister, but I also feel like she's trying to manipulate the situation and make me feel guilty for something I shouldn't have to do. The weird thing is, Lila has never done anything like this before in such a public and manipulative way. She's usually dramatic in private, but I never expected her to try to turn an entire family against me over something that's really out of my control. I feel sad that she won't be there, but I also feel like giving in would just reinforce this toxic behavior. Since then, my parents haven't spoken to me normally, and family group chats have been icy. My fiancé is trying to help me navigate it, but I feel guilty because it's putting a huge strain on the last few months before the wedding. I've tried reaching out to Lila to apologize for the way things escalated, not for my stance, just for the hurt feelings. But she says she doesn't want to talk until I admit I was wrong for refusing to help her. So here I am, conflicted. I do not think I should be responsible for finding someone to cover her shift at her job, and I think my parents and other family members are being unreasonable by expecting me to. At the same time, I feel awful that my sister won't be at my wedding and that my family is angry with me. AITA for refusing to cover my sister at my wedding, even though it has caused a huge family feud. Character count 6,496 if you want. I can also craft a second story with a slightly darker twist and even more dramatic family conflict. It tends to perform well on Reddit AITA threads. Do you want me to do that next? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house after she demanded I cater to her every whim. So, this is going to be a bit long, but I really need an outside perspective because my family has made me feel like a villain. I, 33F, live in a medium-sized city in a modest but very comfortable home. My younger sister, Emily, 28F, recently got engaged to her boyfriend, Mark, and she's been planning a wedding that is, well, extravagant to say the least. To give some context, Emily and I have always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, she was the type who wanted everything on her terms and would guilt-trip anyone who disagreed. As adults, we have our differences, but I've always tried to support her, even if it meant bending over backwards sometimes. I'm generally the safe and responsible sibling. She's the spontaneous, dramatic one. Anyway, Emily got engaged last year, and as soon as the ring was on her finger, she started bombarding me with wedding ideas. She told me early on that she absolutely wants her wedding at my house. She lives in a small apartment and claims my house has that warm, whimsical vibe that Pinterest weddings dream about. At first, I laughed it off, thinking she was joking, but she was dead serious. She even said, and I quote, "Your house is perfect, and you don't even have a life, so you can host us and do everything I say." That's when my stomach sank. I tried to reason with her gently, explaining that hosting a full-scale wedding in my home is not realistic. My house isn't enormous, and while I love to entertain, this is a wedding for 150 people. There's not enough space for tables, let alone a dance floor, and parking would be a nightmare. I offered to help with other aspects, like invitations, music, or even helping find a venue. Emily didn't take no well. She started sending me mood boards, seating arrangements, and even sample catering menus, all tailored to the idea that my home was the venue. The breaking point came when she asked me to handle the catering. Not just coordinate, but provide all the food. She said she wanted a fully catered event and that I should just figure it out because I know you have time. I reminded her that catering 150 people in a home kitchen is extremely difficult, expensive, and time-consuming. She replied that I shouldn't complain because I have the means to do it and that I could hire people if I wanted. At that point, I realized she was being manipulative. She wasn't asking for help. She was demanding it. I told her flat out, "I'm not hosting the wedding at my house, and I will not be responsible for catering." I also said I can help her find a suitable venue and caterers if she wants guidance. But my home is off limits. This is where things got ugly. She immediately started texting our parents, saying I was selfish, jealous, and refusing to support my own sister. My parents tried to mediate, but it quickly became clear they were leaning toward Emily. They said things like, "It's your sister's big day. You should just help her," and "You're being dramatic. She just wants to celebrate with family." I tried explaining that this isn't about not loving her. It's about logistics and sanity, but they brushed it off. Emily didn't stop there. She started posting cryptic messages on social media about family not being supportive and tagged me in some. Some of our mutual friends reached out privately, asking why I was being so harsh. I felt completely cornered. Here's the kicker. Emily then suggested I should sleep at a hotel the night before and the night of the wedding so that the house would be ready for the big day, implying I would handle setup and clean up alone. I finally had enough. I responded firmly that I would not be involved in hosting or managing the wedding at my home. I reiterated that I would happily help in other ways that didn't require turning my life upside down. The fallout has been intense. Emily is now refusing to talk to me except through our parents. Our parents keep sending me messages about being reasonable and compromising. Even a few friends have quietly said I should have been more accommodating. I feel like I'm being painted as the villain for saying no to an unreasonable request. I understand weddings are emotional, and I get that she wants her dream day. But I also feel like this is completely unfair. Hosting a 150-person wedding in my house is not a minor favor. It's a huge responsibility and cost, and she's been extremely demanding about it. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house and handle catering for 150 people, even though she insists it's the perfect venue. AITA for refusing to lend my parents money for a house renovation, even though my siblings did. So this is going to be a long one, but I need to get off my chest because the situation has escalated more than I expected. I, 28F, have always had a somewhat complicated relationship with my parents, but things were okay until recently. My parents, 60M and 58F, live in a house they bought back in the 90s, and it's getting older, obviously. They've been talking about renovations for years, but they always drag their feet because it's expensive. Recently, however, they decided they wanted to gut the kitchen, replace the roof, and redo the bathrooms. They told my siblings 32M, 26F, and me about it, and started casually asking if we could chip in. Here's the thing. My siblings are very financially well off. My brother owns a small business that's been booming, and my younger sister has a high-paying job in tech. Me? I'm doing okay, but definitely not rolling in money. I live in a city with high rent and student loan debt, and I've only recently started saving seriously. When my parents asked me, I explained that I couldn't contribute anything beyond maybe helping with small labor or buying some supplies if needed. My siblings, unsurprisingly, jumped in and offered significant amounts, enough that they could practically cover most of the renovations themselves. I thought that would be the end of it, but then things started getting weird. My mom started calling me almost daily, saying things like, "Your siblings are really generous, you could at least try to help, or we just need a small loan, and you can pay us back later." I explained repeatedly that I just don't have the funds to contribute in a meaningful way and that it would stress me out if I tried to do it. My parents started guilt-tripping me, telling me that I don't care about the family and that my siblings understand the importance of helping parents. I tried to stay calm, but it escalated further when my brother and sister brought up the renovation budget at a family dinner. My parents started comparing how much each of us was contributing. I sat there quietly while they praised my siblings for being responsible adults and stared at me with disappointment. I finally said, "I don't think it's fair to put me in a position where I'm being shamed for not having the same financial capacity as you two. I support you emotionally, but I cannot give money I don't have." That statement apparently opened a floodgate. After that, my parents started sending long, guilt-laden texts. My dad wrote a 300-word message detailing how they'd always helped me when I was in school, implying that I owed them. My mom said they were very hurt and that maybe I didn't really care about their well-being. At first, I tried to respond rationally, but it kept escalating. I mentioned that I could help with practical things, like helping paint or do some cleaning, but they dismissed that as not the same as helping financially. The situation took another turn when my siblings apparently had a private conversation with my parents and decided that my stance was unreasonable. Suddenly, at a small family gathering, my parents openly criticized me in front of extended family, asking why I was so selfish and why I couldn't find a way to contribute. My brother and sister didn't back me up. They mostly stayed quiet, maybe out of awkwardness. I left the gathering feeling humiliated. I decided to take a step back and limit contact for a few days because my anxiety was through the roof. When my parents called again, my mom basically said, "If you don't help, maybe we shouldn't consider you part of this family when the renovations are done." At that point, I just stopped responding. Here's what's been happening since. My siblings have continued to fund the renovation, and my parents post pictures online of the work being done. Every time I see the posts, I feel guilty, even though logically I know I did nothing wrong. A few friends told me that what my parents are doing is manipulative and that I have the right to set financial boundaries. But part of me feels like I'm failing as a child. I've also been thinking a lot about fairness. Yes, my siblings can afford it, and I can't. I'm contributing in my own ways, like offering to help paint, arrange furniture, and even cooking meals for them during the renovation process. But none of that seems to matter to my parents. I just feel like they're punishing me for circumstances beyond my control. So Reddit, AITA here. I know I can't be expected to contribute money I don't have, but my parents are really pushing the narrative that I am selfish and uncaring, and my siblings seem to agree. Am I overreacting by staying firm on my boundary, or should I somehow find a way to give them money to keep the peace? I'm at my wit's end. AITA for ruining my sister's wedding over a disagreement about the flower arrangements. I, 32F, have always been extremely close to my younger sister, Emily, 28F. Growing up, we were inseparable, and even as adults, we were always involved in each other's lives. When Emily got engaged last year, I was ecstatic. She and her fiancé, Tom, 30M, had been together for 5 years, and I genuinely believed they were perfect for each other. From the very start, I offered to help with the wedding planning in any way I could. Emily insisted she had it under control, but she did want my opinion on certain things. Fast forward to a few months ago. Emily and Tom had decided on a rustic, boho-themed wedding. Everything was going well until they asked me to help pick the floral arrangements. I have a background in event planning and floral design, so I assumed my input would be valued. We went to a local florist, and I made some suggestions based on color palettes, balance, and the overall aesthetic. Emily listened politely, but kept saying she wanted it her way without explaining much. The tipping point came when we were finalizing the bouquets. Emily wanted to mix wildflowers with some very bright, neon-colored artificial flowers. She said she loved the contrast, but in my professional opinion, it completely clashed with the rustic theme and would look tacky in photos. I told her bluntly that I thought it was a bad idea and offered alternatives that would still stand out but be cohesive. She dismissed my suggestions entirely and said, "It's my wedding, not yours. Stop bossing me around." I admit I might have come across as forceful, but I felt strongly about this. I have spent years working with weddings and events, and it hurt to see someone I love potentially make a choice that could look off. I tried to explain that my concern was about the end result, not controlling her wedding. She started crying and accused me of trying to overshadow her. At that point, I backed off and apologized for being pushy. A week later, we were at her bachelorette party. I thought things were somewhat smoothed over, but I could tell there was lingering tension. On the night of the rehearsal dinner, I overheard her tell Tom that she was worried I might sabotage the wedding because of my opinions on the flowers. This made me feel hurt and unfairly judged. I confronted her privately, trying to explain that I had never intended to sabotage anything, only to give advice that she had asked for. She yelled at me in front of her friends, saying I had taken over her wedding and that she didn't need me interfering. I didn't attend the rehearsal dinner after that. I thought maybe some distance would help her calm down. On the day of the wedding, I tried to stay neutral and just enjoy the ceremony, but Emily avoided me entirely. When it came time for pictures, she refused to stand near me. During the reception, I noticed several people whispering. Eventually, Tom's mom came over and said, "I think you need to talk to Emily. She seems genuinely upset about your behavior." I asked Emily if we could have a quiet moment alone, and I tried to apologize again, explaining that I had only ever wanted to help and that my criticisms came from experience, not malice. She exploded, yelling at me in front of everyone and saying that my behavior had ruined her special day. She accused me of turning a joyous occasion into an anxiety-filled nightmare for her, saying, "I can't believe you made me cry over my own wedding because you couldn't control your opinions." After that, I left the reception early. I was devastated. I had spent months helping her plan, and now our relationship was fractured. Emily hasn't spoken to me since, and my parents are split. They say I was right to give advice because she asked for it, but also that I should have been more tactful. Some of her friends are on my side, saying I just have a professional eye and I was trying to help, but others think I was too aggressive. I keep replaying the events in my head. Part of me thinks that I should have just let her make her choices, even if I thought they were bad, because ultimately, it was her day. But another part of me thinks that my experience and advice could have genuinely improved things, and she rejected it out of stubbornness. Now I feel stuck. I love my sister, but I feel like she doesn't understand my intentions, and I'm worried our relationship might be permanently damaged. I keep wondering if I was really the asshole for speaking up about something I felt strongly about, or if I overstepped and ruined something that should have been entirely her decision. So Reddit, AITA for giving my professional opinion about her flower arrangements, which led to a huge argument and ultimately caused tension on her wedding day. The situation has left me questioning whether trying to help was worth the fallout, and I genuinely don't know if I was out of line. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of his fiancé's behavior toward me. So this is going to be long, but I need to get everything out because it's been eating at me for months. I, 28F, have a younger brother, Ben, 25M, who's been dating his fiancée, Sophie, 27F, for about 2 years. I used to like Sophie at first. She seemed sweet and social, and honestly, she got along with most of the family. However, over time, things started to get uncomfortable. A little background. Ben and I have always been close. We live in different cities now, but we talk frequently, especially when it comes to family stuff. Our parents are divorced, but still on decent terms, and I'm generally the peacekeeper of the family. Ben has always relied on me for advice on relationships, jobs, and just general life stuff. When Ben and Sophie first got together, I made an effort to include her in family events. I hosted game nights, introduced her to my friend group, and invited her to small trips with me and Ben. At first, she seemed to enjoy it, but then the passive-aggressive comments started. It started subtly. Comments about my apartment being too messy when I'd invite her over, joking that my friend seemed low class, even though I work in a fairly corporate environment and my friends are all educated professionals. Or saying things like, I guess you don't have time for a proper vacation since you don't make much money. I brushed most of it off initially because, again, Ben was really happy and I didn't want to cause tension. Things escalated over the past year. She started commenting on my appearance, my career choices, and my relationship status. Mind you, I've been single by choice and have never hidden it. During a family dinner, she loudly asked me, "So, are you planning to keep being alone forever? Or is there a man hiding somewhere?" My parents were mortified, and Ben apologized later, saying she was just joking, but it didn't feel like a joke to me. About 6 months ago, Sophie started sending me passive-aggressive texts. Things like, I hope you don't plan to ruin Ben's birthday again like last year, referencing a completely innocent incident where I accidentally double-booked his birthday dinner with a friend's engagement party. She also commented on my social media posts about work achievements, saying, "Wow, good for you, I guess," which felt intentionally condescending. I tried addressing it politely. I sent her a text once, saying something along the lines of, "Hey, I feel like some of your comments are really harsh, and I'd appreciate it if we could be kinder to each other." She replied with a long message, basically gaslighting me, saying, "I don't know why you're making everything about yourself. You're just overly sensitive. I'm fine, and Ben loves me, so maybe you should stop being jealous." After that, I decided to distance myself. I limited our interactions to holidays or large family gatherings where I could avoid being alone with her. Ben noticed and asked me why I was acting distant. I told him honestly, Sophie has said some hurtful things, and I don't feel respected around her. Ben said he was sorry, but also told me, "She's my fiancé. I can't keep asking her to change who she is for you." Fast forward to the wedding. When the invitations came, Sophie specifically requested that I RSVP directly to her, not Ben or my parents. I thought that was a little strange, but went along with it. I replied politely, saying I'd be attending. Then came the pre-wedding family meeting. Sophie asked to have a small dinner with just family members who would be in the wedding party. When I arrived, she had organized this elaborate seating chart and gift distribution, but she purposefully placed me at the end of the table with her dog sitting next to me, which I found weird. During dinner, she made several comments about my career being cute for a side hobby and my living situation being so quirky. She also whispered to another family member that I always overreact to things, which I overheard. At this point, I had had enough. I told Ben privately that I couldn't attend the wedding because I didn't feel comfortable being treated this way in front of our family. I explained that this wasn't about him or our parents, but about how Sophie consistently disrespected me. Ben reacted poorly. He yelled, saying I was being dramatic, ruining his day, and choosing to be the villain in everyone's story. He even told me that our parents were disappointed. I decided to stick with my decision. I sent a polite note wishing them well and explaining I couldn't attend due to personal reasons. A few relatives have reached out, asking me if I might change my mind and saying that weddings are supposed to be a time for family unity. I explained that unity requires mutual respect, and I didn't feel that respect from Sophie. Since then, Ben hasn't spoken to me much. Our parents are upset that I didn't attend, and some extended family members are frustrated as well. I feel like I made the only choice that protects my mental health and boundaries, but now I'm questioning whether I overreacted or if I should have just gone to avoid family drama. I honestly want a relationship with my brother, but I feel like Sophie's behavior has crossed a line, and attending the wedding would feel like I'm condoning it. I also worry that this will permanently damage my relationship with Ben. So Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of his fiancé's consistent disrespect toward me? AITA, so This is going to be long, but I really need to get this off my chest because I'm honestly questioning if I'm the asshole here or if I'm justified in my feelings. This all started a few months ago and has just escalated to a point where I feel like I might have ruined my family relationships, and I'm not even sure if it's fair. I, 28F, have a younger brother, Jake, 24M, and we've always been close, but our personalities are very different. I'm extremely organized, a planner, and tend to take things very seriously. Jake is more free-spirited, last-minute, and thrives on spontaneity. Growing up, this dynamic worked fine because we respected each other's boundaries, but now that we're adults, it's become a source of tension. The issue started when our parents announced they were moving into a new house. It's a bigger place, more in the suburbs, and they wanted all of us involved in planning the housewarming party. My parents are pretty traditional, so they were hoping for a more formal event with a clear plan. Invitations, seating arrangements, catering, the works. Jake, however, immediately started pushing for a casual barbecue with friend from college. Loud music and a come-as-you-are vibe. He basically dismissed our parents' vision and said it would be boring otherwise. I tried to mediate at first. I explained to him that this party is about our parents and what they want, not about what we think is fun. He scoffed and said I was being controlling and overcomplicating things. I told him that planning isn't controlling, it's considerate. He got visibly annoyed and said I needed to loosen up. At that point, I realized trying to reason with him was futile, so I decided to take matters into my own hands. I spent the next few weeks organizing the party in a way that balanced formality and casual elements. I ordered catering, arranged tables, booked a small live band my parents liked, and sent out carefully designed invitations. I even made sure there was a small area for Jake's spontaneous ideas, like a DIY drink station, so he wouldn't feel completely excluded. I thought this compromise would make everyone happy. A week before the party, Jake found out I had basically made all the major decisions. He flipped. He called me controlling again, accused me of stealing the party from him, and said I made it soulless and boring. I tried explaining that I left room for his ideas, but he was having none of it. He even told my parents privately that I was trying to ruin their celebration, which they were visibly upset about when they confronted me. I assured them that my goal was never to overshadow anyone, but to make the party enjoyable for them. When the day of the party arrived, Jake decided to take matters into his own hands. He showed up early with a bunch of friends and started rearranging tables, blasting music from his own speakers, and moving decorations around. He also encouraged our parents' friends to ignore the planned seating arrangement, which created a lot of confusion. My parents were annoyed, but didn't want to make a scene, so I tried to salvage the party by accommodating his changes as best as I could. The problem escalated when a few of Jake's friends accidentally broke a vase that was a family heirloom. I was furious, but my parents just sighed and said, "It's fine, accidents happen." Jake, however, didn't apologize and blamed me for making the vibe uptight, which forced people to rebel. At that point, I snapped and told him he had crossed a line, that this was our parents' party, and that he needed to respect their wishes. This turned into a heated argument in front of a lot of guests. After the party, things were tense. My parents tried to stay neutral, but kept dropping hints that they appreciated my effort in planning. Jake, however, hasn't spoken to me since, and when I tried reaching out, he called me controlling and said I ruined his chance to have a real, fun family celebration. He's even posted on social media, subtly shaming me as the sibling who can't relax. I genuinely feel like I tried to compromise and that I respected my parents' wishes, but Jake is acting like I ruined everything. My friends and some extended family say I was just being responsible and considerate, but I can't help feeling guilty because I do value his perspective. I guess part of me is worried that I overstepped or that I was too rigid, but another part of me thinks he's completely unreasonable and manipulative, making me feel guilty for trying to do the right thing. So, Reddit, AITA for taking control of the party planning and standing up to my brother when he tried to derail it, even though it caused tension between us? Or should I have just let him do whatever he wanted, even if it meant disregarding our parents' wishes and risking chaos? The fallout has been rough. My parents are trying to mediate, but Jake refuses to engage in any sort of discussion and it's straining family gatherings. I love my brother, but I also feel like I need to respect boundaries, and he clearly feels the opposite. I'm just lost at this point. AITA? Character count. 6,556 if you want. I can also create 3 more long AITA stories in a similar style, each with a different type of family/friend conflict that's very Reddit popular, so you'd have a batch of stories ready for posting. Do you want me to do that next? AITA for refusing to help my sister financially after she got herself into a mess she knew was coming. This is going to be a long one, but I'll try to lay out all the details. I, 29M, have a younger sister, Emily, 26F. We've always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, she was very impulsive and had a knack for getting herself into trouble, while I've always been more cautious and responsible with money. Our parents have been divorced since we were kids, and I'm pretty independent, living in a different city and managing my own finances. Emily, on the other hand, has a history of living paycheck to paycheck and making decisions that consistently backfire. A few months ago, Emily called me in a panic. She had taken out a quick loan with sky-high interest rates to cover a vacation she had impulsively booked, and now she couldn't make the payments. She was begging me to lend her money so she could pay off the loan and avoid ruining her credit forever. I was frustrated because this was not a small amount. It was around $4,500, and I knew it was exactly the kind of situation she puts herself in when she doesn't think ahead. I told her straight, I wasn't going to lend her the money. I explained that helping her in this situation wouldn't actually solve anything long-term. She's repeatedly gotten into similar situations before, and each time someone bailed her out, she continued making reckless financial choices. I even suggested she contact the lender and see if she could negotiate a payment plan or explore other financial assistance programs. I also reminded her that she could cut back on unnecessary expenses, sell some things, or even pick up extra work temporarily. She did not take this well. The conversation escalated quickly. She started yelling at me about how I was being selfish and how families should support each other no matter what. She accused me of not caring about her and claimed I was letting her ruin her life. I tried to stay calm and reiterated that I care about her a lot, but bailing her out every time she makes impulsive choices isn't helpful. It's enabling bad behavior. She then hung up on me, and we haven't spoken much since. A week later, our mom called me. She was angry at me for refusing to help my sister in her time of need and said I was being cruel. Mom tried to guilt me by reminding me that I was older, more responsible, and should know better. I tried to explain my perspective again, that I'm not refusing to help her emotionally or offer advice, but that giving her money would not actually help her in the long term. Mom didn't seem to get it and told me Emily was heartbroken and that she didn't understand how I could be so cold. A few weeks after that, Emily reached out again, this time asking for smaller amounts. First $500, then $300, and then another $200. Each time I refused, offering the same suggestions: budgeting, negotiating with lenders, or looking into side gigs. Her messages became increasingly passive-aggressive, with lines like, "I guess some siblings just don't care," or "I hope you never need anyone when you mess up." At this point, I decided to stop responding because I didn't want to get dragged into another argument. Here's where it gets messy. A few days ago, Emily posted something on social media, essentially publicly shaming me for not helping her. She didn't mention the exact amount, but made it clear I had refused to assist her financially. The post has a lot of mutual friends and family commenting, and it's basically painted me as selfish and uncaring. I didn't respond publicly because I didn't want to start a fight online, but privately, people have started messaging me asking if I really don't care about my sister. I do care. I love her, and I want her to succeed, but every time I help her financially, it feels like she's learning nothing from these situations. I also can't ignore the fact that $4,500 is a lot of money for me, and it's not something I can just give out because she panicked. I've considered helping her in other ways, like helping her create a strict budget or giving her resources to deal with her debts responsibly, but she refuses to take advice and insists that money is the only solution. I'm now in a situation where I feel guilty every time I see her posts or hear from family. But I also feel like giving in would make me resentful and continue a cycle that has never helped her. I've tried to be firm but compassionate, and I feel like I've exhausted most reasonable options. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to give my sister money, even though she's upset and my family thinks I should. AITA for ruining my sister's wedding over a disagreement about the dress. So, this is going to be a long one, but I want to give all the context so that you can judge properly. I, 27F, have a younger sister, Emily, 24F, who's getting married in about 2 months. Up until this past weekend, everything seemed fine, but I've now found myself in a huge fight with my family, and I honestly don't know if I'm in the wrong or if I just stuck to my principles. Emily and I have always been close, but not without our issues. She tends to be a bit controlling, especially about events she's involved in, and I've always been more laid back. When she got engaged last year, I was genuinely excited for her. I also knew early on that weddings tend to bring out the worst in people, so I tried to stay out of any unnecessary drama. My fiancé, Dan 29M, has been supportive of me through all of this, but I think the drama finally reached a point where I might have overstepped, or maybe I did the right thing, I'm not sure. Here's what happened. Emily and I went dress shopping together a couple of months ago. She had already picked a theme for the bridesmaids' dresses: emerald green, satin, off the shoulder. I try to be enthusiastic, even though emerald green is not my favorite color. I found a dress I thought looked nice and that matched her specifications. I told her I was happy with it and that I wanted to make her happy. She seemed pleased, but she also made a comment that stuck with me. She said, "I just hope none of the other bridesmaids try to steal attention from me." I laughed it off, thinking it was just wedding jitters, but in hindsight, it probably set the tone for what came next. Fast forward to last weekend, we were all at her mother's house for a brunch and final fitting with the dresses. Emily's friend and maid of honor, Sarah, had already tried on her dress, and it looked amazing. When it was my turn, I tried on the dress that I had picked out and had already paid for, and that's when Emily lost it. She said the dress didn't fit her vision for the wedding. She started listing reasons. The neckline was wrong, the way it caught the light was off, and the sleeves weren't flattering enough. Honestly, I felt blindsided. She hadn't said any of this before. I tried to explain that I had picked the dress based on her specifications, and I even mentioned that I had already paid for it and made alterations. But she just waved me off and said that I obviously didn't understand the vibe she wanted for her wedding. Then things escalated. She asked me to return the dress and pick a new one, preferably one she liked better. I told her that returning it wasn't really feasible since the store had a strict no-return policy on sale items, and that finding something else in my size in the same color would be difficult with only 2 months left. She accused me of being selfish and making her wedding about me. At that point, I snapped. I said that her wedding shouldn't come at the expense of my financial stability or my comfort, and that if she really cared about me as her sister, she would understand that I couldn't just buy a new dress because she had changed her mind at the last minute. Things got heated. My mom tried to mediate and said that I was being stubborn and that I should just do it for Emily. I told my mom that I've done plenty for Emily over the years, babysitting, helping with school, even lending her money, and that this felt different because it was something that affected me directly. Emily started crying and said I was ruining her wedding and that she couldn't believe I would be so dramatic over a dress. My dad didn't say much, but I could tell he was frustrated with the tension. At that point, I made a decision. I told Emily that if the dress really upset her so much, then I wouldn't wear it. I would either sit out of the ceremony or not be part of the bridal party at all. Emily looked shocked and said that was ridiculous, that I couldn't just opt out and leave her hanging. But I honestly felt cornered. I didn't want to fight her all the way to the wedding day, and I also didn't want to give in just to avoid conflict and end up resenting her later. Here's where it gets worse. I went home that night and called the dress store to see if I could at least exchange it for a different style or get store credit. They said it was impossible. I told Emily the next morning, and she called me selfish and accused me of trying to ruin the wedding on purpose. Things blew up in the family group chat, and now my extended family has been messaging me, saying I'm being unreasonable, that I should apologize, and that Emily is heartbroken because of me. Dan thinks I did the right thing because he says Emily's behavior was unfair and controlling. My best friend thinks I overreacted and that I could have tried harder to compromise. I honestly feel torn. On one hand, I don't want to ruin Emily's special day, but on the other hand, I feel like she has been completely dismissive of my feelings and that she's expecting me to sacrifice too much. At this point, the tension is unbearable. My parents are upset with me. Emily is still crying and sending passive-aggressive texts. And even some of my friends are telling me I should just apologize and make it work, even though I don't feel like I did anything wrong. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to buy a new dress for my sister's wedding when she changed her mind at the last minute, even though it's causing a huge family feud. Character count, 6,442 if you want. I can create a second version that is even more dramatic with extra twists, secrets, and betrayal, which tends to go viral even more. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her partner to my wedding after discovering he has a criminal past. 28F, am getting married in a few months, and honestly, I've been thrilled planning everything. I have a small circle of close friends and family, and my fiancé Jake, 30M, and I agreed early on that we wanted the day to feel intimate and safe, considering how many stressful things weddings can get. My sister, Lila, 26F, has been one of my closest confidants, so naturally, I wanted her by my side on this huge day. She's always been supportive and genuinely excited about my relationship with Jake, so everything was going smoothly until recently. A couple of weeks ago, Lila started getting serious with a new guy, Kevin. She's really happy with him, but the situation quickly became complicated. I had never met him before because she said he had a very busy schedule and had been traveling for work. She promised I'd meet him soon, but due to her schedule, it hadn't happened yet. Honestly, I trusted her judgment and assumed he was a normal guy. Then, a mutual friend casually mentioned Kevin's name in a conversation, which led me to do some digging online. I stumbled across news articles and court records indicating that Kevin had been convicted of a violent assault about 6 years ago. I read the details and they were terrifying. The victim was someone he had attacked in a bar fight, and although he served time, the case was highly publicized. My heart sank because my wedding is meant to be a safe, joyful day surrounded by the people I love. I immediately thought of the possible risks. Would there be tension? Could someone feel unsafe? Even if Kevin had changed, the fact that he had committed a violent crime left me uneasy. I decided to talk to Lila about it privately. I told her that I had learned about Kevin's past and expressed my discomfort with him attending my wedding. I tried to approach it delicately, emphasizing that my concern wasn't about judging him forever or trying to punish him for past mistakes, but that I was responsible for creating a safe environment for my guests. I also suggested that maybe she could come alone or we could have a smaller get-together later to meet Kevin. Lila did not take it well. She started crying and saying that I was being unfair and judgmental, that everyone deserves a second chance, and that Kevin is a completely different person now. She accused me of overreacting and said I was putting my wedding before her happiness. She reminded me that I didn't even know him personally, implying that my judgment was based solely on some news articles and court documents. The conversation ended with her storming out and saying she might not even come if Kevin isn't allowed. Since then, our relationship has been strained. She's been sending me texts accusing me of being controlling and selfish. My parents are split on the issue. My mom says I'm being cautious and within my rights to decide who comes to my wedding, while my dad is saying I should let go of the past and that I'm risking a bigger fallout with Lila if I enforce this. Jake is fully supportive of me keeping Kevin off the guest list. He's worried that if something were to happen or if tensions ran high, it could ruin the day for both of us and all our guests. I've tried reaching out to Lila to explain that this isn't a personal attack, but she's currently refusing to talk except through angry texts. Every time I try to reason with her, she accuses me of being a bad sister and a hypocrite, pointing out that we both have made mistakes in the past. I understand that, but this is different. I'm not asking her to change her life or break up with him. I'm only asking her to come to my wedding alone, and I offered alternative ways for her to spend time with him before or after the wedding. I keep going back and forth in my head. On one hand, I feel I'm being responsible and cautious. On the other hand, I worry that this could permanently damage my relationship with Lila. The last thing I want is for her to feel hurt or unwelcome, but I also don't want to compromise the safety and comfort of my guests or the vibe I want for my wedding. Some friends have told me that weddings are meant to celebrate love and family, and that maybe I should let Kevin attend to keep the peace. Others have said that the bride has the final say and that it's entirely reasonable to make a decision that ensures everyone feels safe. I'm torn. Am I the asshole for refusing to let my sister bring her partner to my wedding because of his criminal past, even though she's extremely upset? Or should I swallow my discomfort for the sake of family harmony? I feel like I'm stuck between protecting my wedding and preserving my relationship with my sister, and I don't know which path is the right one. The wedding is supposed to be the happiest day of my life, but right now it feels like it's tearing my family apart. I know this story has nuances, and I want to be fair in how I see this. I've thought about alternative compromises, like private meet and greets or letting him attend only the reception, but honestly, I'm worried that even that could create tension or make guests feel uneasy. I also know that people can change, and maybe he really is a better person now, but the thought of him being there at the ceremony, so central to my special day, just doesn't sit right with me. I'm at a loss, and I feel guilty for even bringing this up with Lila, knowing how much she cares about him. But I also feel like I can't compromise my sense of safety and the sanctity of the day. I don't want to be labeled controlling, but I also don't want to have regrets about my choices later. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her partner to my wedding after discovering his violent criminal past? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.